thanks to those of you who came out and braved the weather. Appreciate it. I'm just glad to be talking to Gabino and talking about this book, which is incredible. Gabino and I go back a bunch of years now, though we've only met in person one other time here in Oxford for the Oxford conference for the book a few years ago, when I invited him here to be on a kind of noir panel that I put together for the conference. But we have similar kind of publishing histories. I know him from our small independent publisher, Broken River Books, who published Gabino's first two books and my first two books. And I think that's how we first kind of got to know each other online. Those first two books, Zero Saints and Coyote Songs, also went on to be translated into some other languages. And my first book, Gravesend, went on to be translated into some other languages. So we have similar kind of paths to where we're at. And now Gabino's got this great new novel published by Mulholland, which is one of the best presses around if you're a fan of crime fiction, noir, and they publish Jim Thompson's catalog and Joe Lansdale and Jordan Harper now, and just a bunch of great writers. I could keep listing there. Dwayne Swarzinski. There's so many people who are published by Mulholland, and Gabino now joins their ranks, and it's a perfect match, I think. So, like I said, I'm thankful that you guys came out. I'm thankful that Gabino drove here to be with us, and I'm really excited to talk about this book, which is terrific. And sometimes when you do these things, for me anyway, it's stressful when it's been a while since I've read the book, because I don't have a great memory, and so if it's been 6 months since I've read the book and I'm trying to talk about it, it's not very fresh in my mind. So I wanted to hold off on reading this until right before this, basically, so it could be very, very, very fresh in my memory. And so I've read it basically in the last week or so, and so it's all really super in the front of my mind right now. And I was totally blown away by it. So I have a million kind of scattered notes and a million scattered things I'd like to talk about. But I'm going to try to stay focused, just kind of keep it down to a handful of questions that I hope make some sort of sense, and then open it up to questions. And really, as I'm not doing a good job of right now, have me talk less and Gabino talk more. So I'll shut up in a second. But the first thing I wanted to ask about is just kind of I think one of the things that really struck me about this book is that it's kind of it feels almost like kind of a punk rock kind of like catharsis. It's full of it's, first of all, it's not a slow burn novel. It's a novel that I think is just kind of just right out of the gate, loaded with momentum and doesn't let up. I mean, it takes place over a relatively small span of time. It's first person, and maybe I should talk just a second about the setup, or I'll let Gabino talk about the kind of setup for the book, the synopsis, so I don't give too much away. But I want to talk about just kind of the origins of the book, where the idea came from, how you decided to stick with one point of view, which I think the other books are, right? Because both Zero Saints and Coyote Songs are...
Zero Saints kind of is. Coyote Songs has 6.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's what I was remembering, that one. How you decided to stick with that one point of view, and just kind of obviously there's, one of the things I love is when I feel like a writer is just kind of getting everything they know into a book, everything they want to say into a book. And I feel like that this book is a thrilling kind of crime narrative, but it's also loaded with ideas about class, race, the American dream, the border, you name it. And injecting all of that stuff into the book constantly. So where did the idea come from? Where did you start? What was the process like of writing it? And anything you want to say about kind of the origins of the project?
I love when people say I'm not prepared and they got notes. makes me feel wildly unprepared. I moved to the U.S. in 2008, and since then I was a teaching assistant at the University of Texas at Austin. I taught ESL classes to undocumented workers at Progresso School in Austin. I was a high school teacher for 2 years. I wrote for the Austin Post for about a year and a half. I sold life insurance for Citizens Inc. I could go on and on and on. So between all those gigs, I think between 2008 and 2022, I've been uninsured like half of that time. Obviously, the smaller gigs and the teaching stuff doesn't have health insurance, and I was never that worried. It never sort of scared me, and then I had a kid, and I was like, oh crap. Now I'm afraid of all the things that the world can do to you all of a sudden. And I'm sure if you got kids, you felt that way before. You're no longer just living for you, you're living for somebody else. And that was the seed for this book, which I started writing while teaching high school, which was a relatively comfortable time because I knew exactly how much money I was going to get every single month, and I had health insurance. And it felt really nice. And then in March of 2020, they said, we don't have a contract for you in August. Best of luck. God bless. And then I was like, all right, so what now? And the world said, now nothing. No one's going to hire anybody. There's no job fairs to go to. Sit your ass at home and write. So I spent between March and maybe the middle of June hours every day on Indeed trying to send out resumes. That wasn't working out, and I said, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, I don't like our healthcare system. Maybe I should use all of this as fuel to finish that novel, which I wrote the first 40,000 words in my 30-minute lunches at school while eating a sandwich, typing with one hand, and suddenly I had time. So that was the good part. The silver lining of that situation was having time to write. And between, I don't know, July and October, which is unheard of for me because I'm a really slow writer, I finished it and sent it off to an agent. So the idea was all of the things that normally make me angry or unhappy, to pack them into a single story. And to talk about, because Pseudo Saints and Creole songs talked a lot about migration, but I think I was neglecting a little bit of the privilege that comes from having an American citizenship, which I have as a Puerto Rican. I'm a second-class citizen. I can't vote for the president. We have no representation almost, but we have, as soon as we're born, we get a blue passport. And I was, all right, it's time to bring this in, build a different type of character that allows me to punch racists on a page, which is therapeutic.
Yeah, so let's talk about the character, because the book is about all this other stuff that I just mentioned that is kind of tied up in the narrative. But at the heart of the book is this one character, Mario, who I don't want to give too much away about the actual plot, but basically his life falls apart at the beginning of the book, and he has an incredible loss and is basically thrust into in kind of I think a grand noir tradition, a good person thrust into a bad situation, or somebody who is up against a wall and suddenly has to make bad decisions. It's either die broke, or do bad things to survive. And so that's basically what the kind of narrative arc of the book is, that this guy's life, Mario, falls apart, and he's kind of pushed into a position where he's got to do some stuff, some bad stuff for money. So I want to talk about him as kind of a noir character, as somebody who you know, like I said, is a good man, I think, at heart, who's forced to do bad things. So, you know, he's somebody, you know, he does some really bad things in the book, actually. Like, not just, there's all sorts of kind of ethical questions he tangles with throughout the narrative, and some of the things he does, he can justify, and some of the things he does, he can't quite justify. But it's always kind of in the name of survival and you know, just kind of getting by. But can you talk about Mario a little bit, and just kind of what you were thinking of and how he fits into this? Because I think he does fit into this mold of a kind of you know, classic noir kind of, I guess, anti-hero.
Yeah.
If I'm using that word correctly.
You should know, you're the more maestro. No, absolutely right, and you mentioned normal people being thrown into bad circumstances. I love crime fiction, noir, and I love horror, and I think they share that, because horror is like you moved into the haunted house.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person, you're trying to protect your animals and your kids, and the demon's gonna get you all. In this case, it was, I'm tired of good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
And talking to people and knowing real humans. I mean, we don't have to go to the extreme of like John Wayne Gacy would dress up as a clown to go make money to help kids, right?
Right.
So he was a super nice person. We don't have to go to that extreme to know that we all have our dark side, and sometimes it's somebody messes with your kids, that dark side comes out. Someone cuts you up in traffic and you've had a bad day, the dark side comes out. But I think we've built a system that tends to push us from different places constantly, whether it's culturally or politically or financially. And when you reach that breaking point, there's almost no reason to hold it in anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Mario reaches that point, and he's like, I'll kill people for money, because why not?
Yeah.
And he does a lot of mental gymnastics to convince himself that these people deserve it.
Yeah.
And once you manage to develop that skill, you can find reasons to. I would go out and punch Ted Cruz right now, because I've convinced myself that he deserves it.
Yeah.
It's illegal. It's a bad thing to do. I would go to jail. But you know, mentally, I've done the exercise, and Mario does those exercises, and at some point, you don't have to do them anymore. It's just like, this is what I need to do, so I'll take care of business. And I think noir does that. It's sort of, well, we didn't, you know, take heist novels. We didn't want anybody to die, but once the first person died, we just killed 7 cops. Because things went south, and we needed to escape. And I think he gets there very early, and is surprised by the ease with which, you know, he embraces that darkness and moves forward.
Yeah, it's great, and it's, you know, I mean, I think it's one of, like, as I said, one of my favorite things about the book is this kind of ethical, you know, battle raging within him throughout, because there's not, you know, and I'm with you, I don't like one-dimensional good guys or one-dimensional bad guys at all, and I don't like, you know, people who kind of, you know, I think we've all seen kind of to death or read to death one-dimensional kind of hero who has a code. But I think one of the interesting things this book does is that it kind of, you know, puts you in Mario's shoes in terms of asking yourself questions about, you know, if in a rigged system, in a fucked world, like, is it, you know, where you've seen over and over again that there is no justice, that there's very little mercy, is it possible to retain any sort of code? And I think that's something he's kind of always battling with, which is one of the things I really love about the book. That, and you know, but he is somebody that you don't, you feel for throughout the book. I mean, he's not always, I guess, a sympathetic figure, but he's always somebody that you're with. I mean, I don't think you ever kind of, even when he's doing terrible things, you kind of get it, because you understand what he's going through in his mind. So yeah, he's a he's the backbone of the book, obviously, the main character. As I said, it's a, you know, I've never written a book that's first person, you know, all the way, one character, and you know, I love many books that do that. You know, when I sit down to write, I find it difficult to pull that off. I've tried, and it just hasn't worked out. But I think in this book, you know, I can't think of many recent examples that pull it off as well or better. You know, I mean, just really hooked me to his voice and stayed with me all the time. And you talked about, I want to kind of jump off of that and get back to what you were saying, because you brought up horror, and I think, you know, I think when you read about Gabino's work, I think you'll probably, if you read reviews or read interviews or anything, you'll see people use phrases like genre defying or, you know, whatever. Because, and I think this is a place we really connect to. He's somebody who does, you know, is all over the place, kind of in terms of influences and interests and inspirations and another thing I love about this book is that it's not just a straight crime novel or straight noir. It's, you know, it's loaded with horror, and it's loaded with kind of other touches and other genres, and it, you know, there are